Good evening and welcome to the first Compostudio. Okay, I know we're live, and they're making sure we know. Since yesterday we missed the cue, and today I will not be blowing my nose directly into the handkerchief right before we actually talk. But welcome to the first Compostudio of the evening. This one will discuss the fast music compo and the tracked music compo, which both took place here in the demo scene area. I guess technically this isn't the demo scene area. The demo scene area is another area, but the scene lounge. And this year we have a lovely stand, which I think is fantastic. I was up in the top of it, and you can absolutely see much better from up there. I heard rumors that we might want to get rid of it and put in more tables. I think we can have more tables. That I'm fine with. But getting rid of the stand? No. Let's see. We have two folks here. We have Miss Saigon and Vurpo. And both of them are familiar with what music is, and what tracked music is, and what fast music is. For those of you that do not know, a fast music compo, basically, you get at the party, you are given a theme or a set of instructions and a very limited time to get the things done. Does anybody remember how long it was this year? Yeah, we're totally clued in on how long it was. It probably was either 2 hours or...
I think it was 1.5 hours.
1.5 hours, yeah. It's not a lot of time to make the song. And this year there was the restriction that you also had to have lyrics, and the lyrics needed to have a number of words in them. And for those of you that did not know what the words are, by the time that you heard the compo entries, you knew what the words were. And a lot of them were in Finnish, so I caught the gist of a number of them, but I'm going to let the other folks comment on some of them because, well, other than siika, which was one of the words that had to be used.
Everybody knows siika.
Yes. Well, those people that do not know assembly may not know what siika is. It is a meme from assembly. It's very popular, and it is a type of fish. And notice that there's siika and not sika. Sika is a pig. So, and that was used in one of the entries. I don't remember which one. Nonetheless, let's run through. I've done enough introduction. I should mention also, since I was talking about the stand, anybody thinking that we don't have very many folks here, this place was full for both of the compos that were just held. The stand was packed. We actually had people that couldn't find seats. And by packed, okay, there were a few spots that were there, but this is Finland. And it's very, we don't put people next to each other in the seats. So it was kind of maybe a little uncomfortable for some folks. But it was very, very packed. And it was what I would call standing room only here in Finland. All right, now that I have jabbered on enough, what did you think of the compo? Either of you.
I always get the feeling with these fast combos that I see the list of words or whatever it is this time, and I feel like I have no idea what to make of any of this. And then when the combo starts and they show the entries, that's when I understand that you can make something out of the words, and it's actually good or funny or both.
It's a little bit like if you watch cooking competition shows and they have required ingredients, and you're trying to think, what on earth can you make with this? And then you're just amazed by what the competitors end up making.
Very true. And if I got it right, the words that were required to be used were, of course, siika, infodesk or infopista, joulupuu, or Christmas tree. And I think festivali.
Festivali, yeah.
I think those are the four. There might...
Oh, meme.
Oh, yes, meme. Yo. So, yes, if you're thinking at home, what could you make a song, how could you put lyrics together that would contain Christmas tree, Mimi, Sika, info desk, and see, I'm already messing up because I can't even remember the fifth term that I had to use. So, first couple tracks were generally music combos. You have the first couple tracks which are good attempts and they actually fulfill everything, and then you start getting rolling with the ideas and so forth. And that didn't really happen here. We kind of just started out with, okay, I'm actually going to put these things together. The first one said that it used a word generator, but it came out all right. How do you feel that it moved from there?
Yeah, I think I have to say I like the ones where it's actually recorded words. I don't remember, was that the first couple?
Yeah, a couple of the first ones did have recorded words,
yes.
And then we moved into the either auto-tuned or generated.
Because then there were two other approaches with the traditional TTS and also the new AI things.
Yeah.
There were a couple where they threw in the words because they had to,
Yeah.
but the words were not the focus of the song. It was more focus on the music.
No.
And the words were there to comply with the rules.
Yes.
But as the entries went on, I noticed more and more creative use of the words, and some actually really good like rhymes and rhythms and lots of different musical styles.
Yeah, I think there was at least one calypso too. I remember that. There were a lot of more dance music types. Admittedly, what I thought when I got to the point where I was thinking, okay, what would I have done? I would have done a punk version, and I was actually looking for a discreant version where they recorded the lyrics in the bathroom again, and but basically I would have just screamed the words that needed to be said right at the beginning of the song, and then gone into something else. So
yeah, there's two different approaches. The one where you list the words and the one where you try to write a story around the words. I think both can be done well.
Yeah.
But yes.
And I think we had quite a bit of a good variety in that compo. It was a good compo. All right. Well, not to discourage from that, but fast compos are fast, and you get to see some creativity that happens very quickly. The tracked music compo is different. Folks can work on those things for up to a year, or, well, in some cases, in this particular compo, up to 30 years. Those use a music tracker. And I checked before coming up here, because I was thinking, how long have we had trackers, and when was the first tracker from Karsten Obarski? And it turns out that was 38 years ago. So we've actually had tracked music compos at parties for, well, the entire time Assembly's been around, but at least 35 years of history of making these things. And for those of you who are not familiar with what a tracker is, either of you, just explain the process of making a tracker tune. Because, you had an entry, a Vertipo, and Ms. Saigon, you've been doing this you've done this at least 1 year.
I actually tracked for the first time in over 20 years today. And I can tell you it's a skill that doesn't stay fresh if you don't keep using it. It is one of the most technical ways of making music on a computer that I've ever tried.
Yeah.
One of the things I keep thinking about is like sometimes you get the question in your head like why do you keep doing this? Because we have modern technology, but I think the limitations on the compo this year made it a lot clearer why it's interesting. We had a 1 megabyte limit and 8 channels,
Yeah.
and I think that makes it clear, kind of clearer what the tracker is there for, and we have the we have the limitations, which as usual breeds a certain kind of like creativity in the entries. You have to think about what samples you put in and how much you can use.
Yes, it's essential. Some people call it spreadsheet music making. It's not. You have to select samples, and you only have a limited number of samples that you can use. There's only so much memory that you can use, and then each column is where you can place triggers for these samples to go, and that kind of scrolls upward is like a piano roll, and then you get several pages of this, and you can put them together, and it eventually forms a system of creating and playing a tune. You can also speed it up and slow it down, and we did see that in a couple of the tracks. We used the new system for playing modules from KJ of TRBL, which was originally done at Deadline, which is open source software, and I had the name of it, and I will have to look it back up again. So why don't we just move on to while I look up the name of the software, which I'll tell in a second. I think it's TrackMeister. Yes, TrackMeister, the Kiitos. The audience has my back. Let's talk about the first couple tracks. I'm going to bow out on these first couple tracks because I thought they were kind of muddied out by the extreme bass, but I also had a monitor in my ear, and that might have disturbed that. I pulled it out about track 5. So, first couple. The first thing I noticed when we started hearing the first couple tracks, maybe 2 tracks or so, is that I think they were a 4-track and then 8-track, if I remember correctly. And the thing that I paid the most attention to is the creative use of the limited number of tracks, because it's in many of the pieces it's hard to tell that it's limited because someone is good at using the number of tracks available. You can you can switch between different tracks and make things that sound like it's more complex than it is.
Yeah, there were a lot of entries where I made a note that it has pleasingly dense patterns.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of there's a lot going on there. A lot of samples, a lot of effects. Good use of the tempo changes and things like that. So there was a lot of I would say technical skill that you could see in a lot of the tracks.
Yeah. Well, even that fellow that did the first track, we had a firstie, fellow that did his first first ever, which was remarkable for a first track. I think that was one of the jungle tracks, and just wow. I was very impressed with that. But yeah, the amount of skill that was being demonstrated. Again, the number of effects, and I don't remember what practically any of them are. Isn't speed speed is E?
I can't remember anymore.
There's speed changes, and there's all the pitch bends and
yes,
all of those things, all the funny things.
Basically, you can't just you could just do syncopation where you're just triggering the note. But you can also do it where you trigger the note and then you can cut the volume and then bring it back in, so you can do stuttering. We didn't see any of that, at least I don't think we did. You can do pitch bends. So it isn't just that you're playing a sample. It's you're playing a sample and modulating it or doing different things. And we saw practically all those things in here. Along with, we had some people that were using some interesting sources for samples as well. We had some C64 tunes where they sampled the C64, or they used a VST to generate things. Now, you can't use a VST to create the tune, but you can create the instruments with that and then use those as samples.
Yeah, I think some of them did that. And there was really two things I noticed in many of the tracks that impressed me. I said one of them is the creative use of the channels. And the other one I really like is the creative sourcing of samples and using of samples. And you can chop them and, as you said, you can start them from different points and re-trigger and everything. And some of them get really, really creative about where they get the samples and how they use them. That's something I also... that's a game I want to get more on because it's so interesting.
I did not realize, these are such good tracks, that I didn't realize there was a limit to the size. I mean, well, with an Amiga you have the limit of the memory, but we also allowed 8 tracks, which you can't do on an Amiga. Well, you can with Octalizer, but it wasn't very popular. And the 4-channel Amiga Pro Tracker tunes is kind of the standard for the Amiga. But with a PC, you can get many, many more. And I noticed that we only had 8-channel, and I wondered why. But also, I had no idea with the quality of the compo and the entries that we actually, had a limit on the amount of memory. Like the one that had samples from a movie. I mean, okay, they're probably 8-bit samples, but still, that's a chunk. And that tune just continued, and well, I know that's going to go on the scene set rotational. It's just fits perfectly right with that. Yeah. So we go through some of our favorites. Don Cato came back after 30 years. I want to mention that. That was cool.
Yeah, I felt personally called out by that one.
Well, yeah, it is good that we have folks that are returning as well as folks that are starting new with this, because it is fun. And it is more fun if you have talent, which I notably do not in making music, so this is why I don't, you don't see my stuff here. But yeah, the first one that I noticed that was really audible, that I didn't hear a drowning out, was the dorsal. I just wrote down dorsal, and I don't remember what that was.
Dorsal sauna.
Yes, and that was the first one that I noticed that the melody was coming through the bass bits. Then let's see, we had something from Violet. I did notice also that we took remote entries, which has not always been the case. Back in the day, as somebody who was living far away from where all the parties were, it was very difficult to get your stuff into a compo. And I think it's better that we're able to take things. I don't know if there was pre-selection on this. I imagine there might have been.
There was a jury for this.
Yeah. But was there pre-selection? Did any? Okay, I'm hearing that there was. So yeah. So yeah. And again, as Subi has said at Revision, and I have echoed, if you get pre-selected out, that does not mean that people didn't like your track. It just means that there's a limited amount of time, and well, we put forth the things that are going to make the best compo, not necessarily even the best tracks. The thing that's going to give you the widest variety and make it enjoyable, and that people can think on things for the compo. So again, if you get pre-selected out, that doesn't mean it was bad, and don't feel bad about it. Continue to make stuff, and maybe submit it at another party. Let's see here. We had a lot of chip tracks.
Yeah, I paid. I on the first one that used the SID samples. initially felt like it feels familiar. It feels like chiptune, but I didn't realize it was Sid until afterwards because I didn't pay attention to what I was hearing.
Right.
But I do like the simple waveforms on chiptunes. That's something I really enjoy. Although one of my favorites was also you said the dorsal song, but then there was also the ballad of something I forgot.
Yes.
Which ballad for scene lovers.
That was like track 3,
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I forget all the names, but that was also a kind of more simple tune maybe than the others, but it really kind of spoke to me because I liked it.
I need to hear that one again. That was one of the ones that I felt was drowned out by the bass. So I am going to have to listen to that at home. And again, I will listen to these at home. It's a thing that just happens. Let's see. Let's see. Chiptunes were audible. Violet was audible. Lemonade's track was audible, but the clicks that were the drum tracks, I didn't hear that well. So.
Was that the one with the ticking clock metronome
Yes.
sound? Yeah.
Yes. That didn't quite come through, and that is something. There are sceners out there that can help you to attune your mod or your track or your music entry so that it sounds better in a hall, because listening to it with your headphones when you're composing it is very different from how it's going to sound in a hall. And there are folks that know how to actually do that, and feel free to talk to them. They will help you. Yeah, Spew is the one that did that was the fellow that was his first. And again, I just thought that was excellent jungle. It was 8 channels rather than 4 channels, so it will not go into one of the packs that Cyphus of Up Rough has put together. But there's been some excellent jungle tracks that have been done in trackers over the years. And it was excellent to hear another one of those. Let's see here. Yeah, we had 2 that were SID-based. Those were basically 15th and the 16th tracks. Beathawk had a chip-type track. If you need me to stop, I'm just giving the names of the things. So if you need me to slow down, just go, truck, shut up.
I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you right now.
Okay. Well, okay, so Beathawk had a chip track. NE7 had a chip track. There were the 2 C64 SID tracks that were after that. Icapolo had a non-chip track. That was the one that ended with, that had the movies. I don't know what movie that was from. I know the actor's voice, but I can't place it. The name. Yeah, I think we actually had half of the tracks which were chip tracks, and the others were of various bits. What do you think of the concentration of chip stuff?
Well, I love a good chiptune. I will say one of the things that I particularly liked about Attack was that it used samples from the C64, but it used them in an 8-channel song. So it was really interesting to see those samples used in a way that they couldn't have been used on the C64.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, gave me a kind of an arcade feeling almost, with the multiple channels, but it's still the chip. But for chip and for the chip the samples, I feel like I'm living on the edge, because I like the. I said I like the simplistic waveforms of like classic chip tunes, but then also sometimes being right in the middle where it still feels like a kind of simple, but with a little bit of complexity. I like a kind of mix, I like a kind of mix of or blend of all kinds maybe.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to go pure chiptune with, say,
Yeah.
that you have to make it with all NES or all.
And it's hard to say which sounds are exactly chiptune and which aren't anyway.
Well, yeah, especially since back in the day on the Amiga, people were making trackers that were just doing synthetic chip things, and then Format said, "Don't need to do that. Just here's a bunch of mods that are chip tunes," and that just broke that all open, and people started doing all sorts of different chip type things. Now you, Verpo, you composed a tune for this.
Yes.
So what was that like, that process, for folks that would possibly like to try doing this? Like, for example, Spew, who just did his first, or their first.
Well, so I used the Milky Tracker, which I use mainly because it's available for me, but it's a more traditional styled, similar to I think Fast Tracker UI, and how I compose is mainly like going from some kind of chord progression I like and adding like melodies, but then a huge part of it is just about listening to samples and feeling what would make the melody feel right, because I'm still swapping out those samples very late on in development.
So you don't necessarily have to pick your samples and then stick with it all the way through.
No, that's actually a more interesting part of the tracker thing, because it's very easy to swap out a sample and see what it sounds like. You can just change it if you want.
No.
Yeah, it's interesting that you start with the chords and then you think of the melody later. When I was more active with tracking, I almost always came up with a melody first and then like figured out what were the chords that supported that melody. So I worked exactly the opposite way.
I usually get have an easier time imagining like what a melody might be like when there's some kind of progression already going on. But it does feel sometimes limiting actually, because I would like to try more things outside of a simple looping like progression thing. I'd like to try more new things in general. Always like to do that.
I understand. Do either of you look at, say, Hoffman's bits that go over things like how to get side chaining in there, or do you just stick to the more? I've got the melody, I've got what I want to do with this, and I'm gonna stick to that and not necessarily run around and do a bunch more technical fiddling with it and perfection. I mean, most of us that do this type of creative stuff, we have a problem with, oh, it's not perfect yet, and then you don't want to release it.
Yeah, there's always a problem with knowing when to stop.
Yes.
And I do have some tracks that I've never released that I've been, at this point, I think I've kind of abandoned them. But, when I was working on them, I was always like trying to get it just a little bit better, and it never felt quite finished. And quite a lot of the entries mentioned something similar, that here it is, it's not even close to finished, but I'm putting it in the competition. And I think maybe that's a good example for all of us to not let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yeah.
I don't have unreleased tracks. I either release them or delete them. I don't feel, if I don't feel like it's worth releasing, then or something similar, or if I can't get it finished, then the track sitting on my computer isn't the valuable thing. It's the knowledge that I gained from experimenting. So I can I just delete the file if I'm not happy with it.
It's an interesting way of looking at it. I always keep everything around because I could reference it later, even though I have learned something from it. But yeah, that also is perhaps more of a hoarding mentality, that I don't want to lose something, and just actually having the ability to just put something out there and let people have it. That's both a skill and it also provides joy to others. So do more of that.
Yeah, I almost always try to release what I have, even if I don't like it, because then it's out there, and it's not a crime to do a bad entry to a compo.
No, it's not. In fact, sometimes those are the best ones, because then you can say, okay, I didn't think that was good, but other people really liked it. All right, let's see. I think we have about a minute left. Is there anything else that either of you would like to sum up with or announce for our audience that is listening?
Make more tracked music. I'm always impressed by these compos.
And big thanks to Mayor for making sure that this has happened. I think he's made sure this has happened now for 3 years. I will instantly be corrected the second that I'm off the stage if that is not correct. So I'll have to fill you in next compo block, which, speaking of which, I believe is at midnight our time here in Finland. For those of you that are in Central Europe, that's going to be at 11 your time. Those of you that are in the UK or Portugal, that will be at 10 o'clock your time in the evening, of course, so 2200. And those of you that are listening in either Japan or South America or in North America, Russia, Australia, I'm sorry, I'm not going to calculate all those things because I only have 31 seconds left. I will just say this quickly. If you are interested in making sure that video games are not cut off from us, there is currently a petition to the UK, I'm sorry, not the UK, the European Union, to stop companies from making video games inaccessible when they just feel that it's not profitable anymore. I can get you the URL, and I will mention that later, but if this interests you, and it should interest everyone, because if you buy a game, you should be able to play that game as long as you want. You spent your money. If you buy something in a game that is DLC, you should be able to use that. You shouldn't just lose it because somebody else decides, yeah, I didn't make enough money, so I'll just take rug pull. There is a thing in front of the European Union right now. It's going to be there for an entire year, and currently Finland is the country with the highest total of signatures. Hyvä Suomi. So with that, we're going to leave you and come back with us. Of course, watch the compos that are coming up. I know we have No, I don't remember exactly. I know we at least have listening music coming up. I don't remember if Real Wild is tonight or not. It is. So, join us later. Good evening for now.